Hello my loves, put the kettle on, grab a biscuit, make yourself comfy. I'm your host and this is Be Yourself Unapologetically. My name is Becca and I'm glad that you're here. This is the place where we untangle life's knottiest feelings without judgment and ideally without spilling our tea on the sofa. Today we're diving into three tricky, often confused topics. There's trauma bonding, why people can feel intensely attached to someone who hurts or controls them. Codependence, a lopsided dynamic where one person chronically overgives, overfixes and loses themselves in the process. It's not a formal diagnosis, but the pattern is very real. And Munchausend's and related terms, how factitious illness behaviour sits alongside these dynamics, including the UK safeguarding term, fabricated or induced illness, abbreviated FLL. A quick heads up, this episode mentions abuse and medical harm. If that's tender for you, take it slowly, pause when you need, and keep your support close. In the UK, you can speak to your GP, ring NHS 111, or contact Samaritans on 116 123. So let's start. Part 1 is, what's a trauma bond? So let's start with the bit about what everyone whispers about. A trauma bond is a powerful emotional attachment to someone who intermittently hurts you and then soothes you. It's a push-pull loop of fear, relief, hope, and confusion. It can happen in romantic relationships, families, friendships, and even workplaces. So, why does this happen? So there's intermittent reinforcement. When kindness arrives unpredictably after mistreatment, the nervous system clings harder. It's like pulling a lever and sometimes getting a reward. Behavioural science calls this intermittent reinforcement. It's known to make behaviour very persistent and hard to extinguish. Then there's number 2. So there's the stress response and bonding chemistry. During conflict, your body fires up with stress hormones, the usual adrenaline, cortisol. When the honeymoon apology comes, relief floods in. The contrast can feel addictive. Chronic stress reshapes the HPA axis, your brain pituitary adrenal stress circuit, which helps explain why leaving can feel physically and emotionally overwhelming. And yes, oxytocin, the social bonding neuropeptide, can amplify attachment, but it's not a simple love hormone. It can increase social risk-taking in some contexts and caution in others, depending on the person and situation. Evidence-wise, research in intimate partner violence shows these traumatic bonds form where abuse is intermittent and paired with emotional closeness. That pattern predicts stronger attachment to the perpetrator. Maddening from the outside, utterly compelling on the inside. So let's plain speak. For an example, you know me, I love my metaphors. So imagine a slot machine relationship. 3 days of criticism and cold shoulders. Then 1 day of flowers, cuddles, and I can't live without you. Your brain learns to chase the win and tolerate the losses. It's not weakness, it's a conditioning. It's like a kettle that only boils on random Tuesdays. You keep flicking the switch, thinking this time for sure, and when it finally bubbles, you feel oddly triumphant, even though you're still gasping for a warm brew the rest of the week. So how is codependence different to a trauma bond? Now, people often bundle codependence and trauma bonding together, but they're cousins, not twins. Codependence is a relationship pattern. It's not a DSM diagnosis. Think chronic over-responsibility, rescuing, people-pleasing, controlling by helping, difficulty setting boundaries, measuring self-worth by someone else's mood or sobriety. It often grows from childhood, where environmental feelings weren't safe or you had needs that had to be repressed. Trauma bonding centres on the abuse-soothe cycle and the way the nervous system gets hooked by unpredictable kindness after harm. They can overlap. A codependent person may be especially vulnerable to trauma bonds because they already tolerate too much, minimise red flags, and believe if I just love harder, it'll change. So let's do a quick comparison checklist. So the primary engine, trauma bond, is intermittent reinforcement after harm. Codependence is identity and self-esteem organised around caretaking and control. So typical thoughts. Trauma bond. They're not like this all the time. I just need to get back to the good days. You know, when we all say that, oh, but they were okay at first. And codependence is more like, if they're okay, I'm okay. I can fix this if I try harder. So, how does it make your body feel? So, trauma bond is like a roller coaster, tension, rupture, honeymoon, and repeat. Whereas codependence is constant hypervigilance and overfunctioning, like running life for two people. So where does Munchausend fit in, which is the factitious disorder? Munchausen syndrome. The UK still uses this term informally, and it refers to a psychological condition where a person feigns or induces illness in themselves to assume the sick role and receive attention and care. Crucially, the aim isn't money or external gain, it's the role itself. In clinical language, factitious disorder imposed on self. When symptoms are fabricated or induced in someone else, often a child, that's fabricated or induced illness in the UK. Safeguarding, historically called Munchausend's by proxy, it's considered a form of child abuse, handled by multidisciplinary safeguarding teams. So how can these patterns intersect with relationships? So in codependent dynamics, a partner or family member might enable excessive medical help seeking or overlook red flags because they're stuck in rescue mode. But in trauma bond dynamics, an abuser may alternate between neglect and then intense caretaking when the other is ill, strengthening the dependency and the control. It's the same intermittent reinforcement loop. So FLL is a safeguarding issue. If you suspect a child is being harmed through fabricated or induced illness, follow safeguarding procedures, speak to your GP, the school safeguarding lead, or contact your local authority children's services. It is intentionally hard to confirm. Professionals must balance not missing genuine illness with keeping children safe. We're not here to diagnose anyone. We're here to understand patterns so we can stay safer and more self-aware. So, how does your body react on a trauma bond? Like we've said before, you've got the fight, flight, and the freeze. Stress hormones surge, heart races, thinking narrows. In short bursts, this protects you. Long term, it wears you down. The HPA axis, the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal chain, coordinates cortisol release. Chronic stress can dysregulate this system, influencing mood, threat detection, and energy. Oxytocin nuance. It can increase trust in some contexts, but doesn't automatically make people nicer. It may intensify existing social tendencies. That's why apologies after harm can feel very bonding. Learning the loops, variable, unpredictable good times keep us hooked longer than consistent rewards. Exactly why the honeymoon phase is so sticky. So let's have a bit of a cheerful, accurate analogy here. So your nervous system likes predictable builders, not mystery electricians. Constant power cuts, stress spikes, plus occasional fairy lights, affection, equals you living in emotional candlelight. So how do we spot the difference in real life? Clues you may be in a trauma bond. You feel relief and highs after apologies that follow clear harm like a pressure valve opening. You explain away injuries to your self-worth. They're just stress. The good times prove who they really are. Friends say, this seems dangerous, and you feel loyal to that danger. So clues you may be in a codependent pattern are: you chronically prioritize someone else's emotions, health, or recovery over your own basic needs. You feel guilty setting any boundary. You confuse helping with controlling. You're exhausted from doing both your job and theirs at home or in the relationship. So clues of possible FLL. Fictitious dynamics, handle with care. Repeated medical investigations with puzzling results. Symptoms reported that don't match observations. The carer appears unusually pleased with medical attention. These are not for lay diagnosis. They're flags for professionals. So if your relationship requires a project plan, 3 spreadsheets, and a laminator just to keep the peace, darling, that's not romance, that's facilities management. So what practical steps can you take to reclaim yourself? Name the pattern privately first. Write out the cycle you experience: tension, then an incident, then apology, and then on the best behaviour, then tension again. Seeing it on paper reduces the maybe I imagined it fog. Learn to stabilise your system. Small, boring, brilliant things like regular meals, sleep routines, walking outside, breathing practices, gentle movement. You're convincing the HPA axis that life isn't an emergency every 5 minutes. Boundaries you can say aloud. I won't stay in conversations where I'm insulted. I'll take a break and revisit when we're both calm. I'll help you with X. On Wednesdays, I'm not available to fix Y and Z. Codependent patterns soften when limits become clear and kept. Support by expertise. So you can have trauma-informed therapy like CBT, EMDR, schema parts-based work, which is around hypnotherapy. You can go to groups. There is actually a group called Codependence Anonymous, or Domestic Abuse Services can provide community and safety planning. So safety first. Always, if you feel at risk, speak to your GP, local domestic abuse services, because it's not just violence. It can be physical abuse, but it can be mental abuse too, and roller coaster relationships that cause you to be trauma bonded, or you know someone that is always saying there's something wrong with their child, and getting numerous people to do investigations and not getting a clear picture back. You know, that's like where the codependence and the Munchausend comes in. But if you are being abused domestically, you can ring 999 in emergency. If it's about children at risk of FLL, you need to contact your local authority safeguarding team, or speak to your GP or the school safeguarding lead. So let's finish our tea with this reminder. Your worth is not measured by what you tolerate, fix, or forgive. Healthy love is consistent, kind, and boringly reliable, like a kettle that boils every time. If today's chat lit a little light on your situation, be gentle with yourself and take just one steady step. So I'm Becca, and this has been Be Yourself Unapologetically. If this helped, share it with a friend who needs a warm brew and a brave conversation. Until next time, take care of your brilliant self. If you want any more sources or further reading on anything I've spoke about tonight, you can look for Munchausend syndrome on the NHS website. You can look for the fabricated or induced illness on the NHS website, or FLL for short. If you type in helpguide.org in Google and look under trauma bonding explainer, there's also the Dutton DG 1993 empirical test of traumatic bonding in abusive relationships. There's the APA dictionary. It's intermittent reinforcement and variable ratio schedules. There's a lot on the NHS website. I do recommend going there and reading up on some of these situations and see if any of them hit home. Thanks for listening. Take care.